News of HFY's impossible destruction spread through the Velkari Empire like wildfire. Supreme Admiral Vorthak, commander of all Imperial forces, stood in the war room on the capital world of Mordun. Around him, holographic displays showed red alerts from across the galaxy. 17 more systems have gone dark, reported his intelligence chief. No survivors, no debris. The planets simply vanish. Vorthak was massive even for a Velkari, his armored hide marked with the scars of 100 victories. He had ruled the Imperial military for 2,000 years and never known defeat. These humans cannot be the same species we eliminated from Earth. Our records show them as weak, emotional creatures who relied on primitive technology. Perhaps they evolved, suggested General Kethmar. 10,000 years is a long time. Evolution takes millions of years, not thousands, Vorthak snapped. This is something else. Show me the battle recordings again. The hologram displayed what little sensor data had escaped from the destroyed systems. Human ships that appeared and disappeared without warning. Weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. Coordination that was perfect beyond any natural ability. They fight like they share one mind, observed the intelligence chief. Impossible, Vorthak declared. No species has ever achieved group consciousness while maintaining individual identity. But Admiral Hyunwoo and his war council knew better. In a meeting room that existed in several dimensions at once, the human commanders planned their next moves. Strategic Commander Junseo studied tactical displays that showed Velkari fleet movements across thousands of systems. Intelligence Chief Haewon monitored communication intercepts from enemy commanders. The Velkari are mobilizing their full military, Junseo reported. 15 million ships converging on key strategic points. Good, Hyunwoo replied. When they gather in large groups, they become easier targets for our new weapons. The Battle of the Crimson Nebula would prove his point. Captain Sang-wook commanded the human forces that met the Velkari Third Fleet in the gas clouds around a dying star. The enemy had brought 8,000 warships. Confident that their superior numbers would overwhelm any human force. They were wrong about everything. Begin reality distortion, Sang-wook ordered. The human ships activated weapons that bent space and time around them. Suddenly, the Velkari fleet found themselves fighting in a battlefield where the normal rules no longer applied. Their shots curved around in impossible directions, hitting their own ships. Their navigation system showed them flying toward targets that weren't there. What's happening? Screamed Velkari Admiral Zekthol as his flagship's weapons turned on his own escort vessels. The humans had learned to weaponize quantum uncertainty in the space around their fleet. Probability itself became unstable. Enemy weapons had a 50% chance of targeting the wrong ship. Enemy communications had a chance of being scrambled into random noise. Enemy life support systems had a chance of simply forgetting how to work. But the most terrifying weapon was psychological. Dr. Eun Jung, the human specialist in alien biology, had developed something she called fear viruses. These were quantum patterns that could be transmitted through Velkari communication networks, directly affecting their brain chemistry. Beginning fear protocol, Eun-jung announced from her laboratory ship. Across the Velkari fleet, commanders suddenly found themselves experiencing emotions they had never felt before. Panic, terror, the absolute certainty that they were going to die. The proud Velkari, who had conquered 1,000 worlds through superior firepower and ruthless tactics, discovered what their victims had felt in those final moments. I can't think, Admiral Zekthol gasped, his forehands shaking as he tried to give orders. Something is in my mind. His officers were in no better shape. Some collapsed at their posts. Others began firing at random targets, including their own ships. The tight Velkari formations fell apart as each captain tried desperately to escape the terror that filled their thoughts. Meanwhile, Colonel In-soo was demonstrating another human advancement. His consciousness existed in 50 different locations simultaneously, coordinating rebellion on enslaved worlds throughout the sector. Through the quantum network, he could split his mind across vast distances, leading multiple operations at once. On the mining world of Veltar, enslaved beings saw Velkari ships burning in the sky and knew their chance had come. In-soo's voice spoke to them through captured communication systems, telling them where to find weapons, how to disable Velkari technology, how to fight back against their oppressors. The humans have returned. His voice echoed across 100 worlds. We are here to free you. Rise up. Fight. Take back what was stolen. Fleet Admiral Kyung-suk oversaw the systematic destruction of Velkari infrastructure. Her fleets didn't just destroy military targets. They eliminated trade routes by creating dark matter storms that made space travel impossible. They corrupted communication networks with quantum viruses that turned messages into meaningless noise. They made entire star systems uninhabitable by destabilizing local gravity fields. The enemy must learn what it means to lose everything, Kyung-suk explained to her officers, just as they taught us 10,000 years ago. But the humans didn't simply destroy. They were careful to avoid harming innocent creatures. When they attacked a Velkari world, the enslaved populations found themselves protected by energy shields while their oppressors faced the full fury of human weapons. On Morden, Supreme Admiral Vorthak watched his empire crumble. Reports came in faster than his staff could process them. Fleets vanishing without a trace, planets rebelling against Velkari rule, trade networks collapsing as human ships made interstellar commerce impossible. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. 3 million and counting, sir," stammered his aide. "But we cannot confirm actual destructions. Most ships simply disappear from sensors. We don't know if they're destroyed or taken." "Taken where?" "We don't know, sir." Vorthak realized the truth that his military mind didn't want to accept. The humans weren't just fighting a war. They were dismantling the Velkari Empire piece by piece, with the patience of species that had learned to think in terms of thousands of years. "Send word to all sectors," he ordered. "Fall back to the core worlds. Establish a defensive perimeter around Morden. We make our stand here." But even as he gave the order, Vorthak knew it was probably too late. The humans had spent 10 millennia studying their enemy. Every Velkari weakness, every system flaw, every psychological vulnerability had been catalogued and prepared for. The galaxy was burning, but it was not the flames of random destruction. It was the controlled burn that cleared away diseased growth so that healthy things could flourish in its place. Admiral Hyunwoo stood on his bridge, watching status reports flow in from across the galaxy. Phase 2 of Operation Homecoming was proceeding exactly as planned. Soon it would be time for the final phase, the march on the Golden Throne itself. The human fleet approached the Morden system like a storm made of starships. Admiral Hyunwoo stood before the largest gathering of human vessels ever assembled. Through the quantum network, he could feel the minds of 10 million soldiers, all focused on the same goal. The Golden Throne, seat of Velkari power for 20,000 years, lay ahead. Emperor Zethkalar the Eternal waited for them. The ancient Velkari ruler had lived for 8,000 years, conquering species and worlds beyond counting. His palace ship was the size of a small moon, surrounded by the most powerful defensive fleet in the galaxy. "Human vessels," came the Emperor's voice across all communication channels. "I am impressed you made it this far, but your journey ends here. I have weapons that can destroy entire solar systems." Hyunwoo activated his response channel. "Emperor Zethkalar, you destroyed our world, killed our people, drove us to the edge of extinction. We have returned to settle that debt." "You are fools," the Emperor replied. "I have ruled this galaxy since before your species learned to make fire. I command forces beyond your understanding." "You commanded forces," Hyunwoo corrected. "Now you have what we left you." It was true. The Velkari forces around Morden were all that remained of their once mighty empire. Most worlds had either been liberated by human forces or abandoned by Velkari troops who fled to protect the capital. What had once been 15 million ships was now fewer than 100,000. Master Engineer Chang Min reported from the technical bay. "All ships are ready for phase shift combat. The dimensional engines are operating at full capacity." Chang Min had spent 500 years perfecting humanity's ultimate military technology. The ships of the final assault fleet existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They could be solid enough to fire weapons, then become ghostly enough to pass through enemy attacks. It was like fighting shadows that could choose when to become real. "Captain Myung-hee, you are cleared for throne assault," Hyunwoo ordered. Myung-hee commanded the ships that would strike directly at the Emperor's palace. Her vessel phased between dimensions as it approached the massive Velkari stronghold. To the defenders, it looked like the human ship was swimming through solid matter. "Impossible," breathed Emperor Zethkalar as he watched human vessels appear inside his defensive perimeter. "Our shields should stop any attack." Your shields exist in normal space, explained quantum specialist Dae-sung through the communication link. We are attacking from spaces that don't technically exist. The Emperor activated his ultimate weapon, a device that could turn an entire star into a supernova. The weapon fired, releasing enough energy to sterilize the whole system. But Dae-sung was ready. The human quantum specialist simply redirected the energy into another dimension. From the Emperor's perspective, his ultimate weapon fired and then vanished without effect. The energy still existed, but in a space where it could harm no one. How? The Emperor whispered. 10,000 years, Hyun-woo replied. 10,000 years of learning, growing, becoming something you could never imagine. The battle for Mordoon was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships flickered in and out of reality, striking at impossible angles. Commander Sung-min coordinated attacks across 17 different dimensions at once. His consciousness split among parallel realities. Colonel Yuri led ground forces that moved through the Emperor's palace like ghosts. They walked through walls, appeared behind enemy positions, struck from directions that shouldn't exist. The Velkari Imperial Guard, elite soldiers who had never known defeat, found themselves fighting enemies they couldn't touch. "Report!" demanded the Emperor as explosions shook his throne room. "Human soldiers inside the palace, Eternal One," gasped a guard captain. "They move through matter itself. Our weapons pass through them. Then use the quantum disruptors, tear apart the fabric of space itself." But when the Velkari activated their most dangerous weapons, the humans simply stepped sideways into dimensions where the disruptors couldn't reach. They had learned to fight in spaces between spaces, in the gaps where reality was thin. Emperor Zethkalar found himself face to face with Admiral Hyun-woo in his own throne room. The human had walked through solid walls as if they were made of mist. Behind him came other humans, their black void-born eyes reflecting nothing but cold determination. "You cannot be here," the Emperor said, his voice shaking for the first time in millennia. "This chamber is protected by shields that bend time itself." "Time is just another dimension," Hyun-woo replied simply. "We learned to bend all dimensions." The Emperor was massive, nearly 3 meters tall and covered in natural armor that had deflected countless assassination attempts. But as he looked at the human before him, he felt something he had never experienced: fear. This was not the same species that had fled Earth 10,000 years ago. Those humans had been bound by the limits of normal space and time. These humans moved beyond such restrictions. They existed in multiple realities at once. They shared consciousness across infinite distance. They had become something that transcended the categories of life as the Emperor understood them. "What have we created?" the Emperor whispered. "You wanted to destroy us," Hyun-woo said. "You burned our world and scattered our people. You thought that would end humanity's story. Instead," added Captain Myung-hee, "you gave us 10,000 years to grow beyond your understanding. You forced us to evolve or die," continued Commander Sung-min. "So we evolved." The Emperor reached for his personal weapon, a blade that could cut through any known material. But his hand moved slowly, as if time itself had become thick around him. The humans had learned to manipulate temporal flow just as easily as they bent space. "The galaxy will be free now," Hyun-woo said. "All the species you enslaved, all the worlds you conquered, they will choose their own paths. And you will rule them," the Emperor accused. "Just as I did." "No," Hyun-woo replied. "We will guard them. There is a difference." The execution was quick and clean. Emperor Zethkalar the Eternal, ruler of 1,000 worlds, conqueror of 100 species, died in his own throne room at the hands of the species he thought he had exterminated. With the Emperor's death, the last organized resistance collapsed. Velkari ships surrendered or fled to the outer edges of the galaxy. The Golden Throne, symbol of imperial power for 20 millennia, went dark for the first time in recorded history. "It's over," reported Fleet Marshal Seong-ho from across the system. "All Velkari military forces have surrendered or retreated. The Empire is finished." Admiral Hyun-woo stood in the Emperor's throne room, looking out at the galaxy that was now free. Through the quantum network, he could feel the joy and relief of billions of beings who had lived their entire lives as slaves. But he also felt something else. The realization that humanity had become something greater and more terrible than their former oppressors had ever been. The question now was what they would do with that power. The war was over. The real test was just beginning. 1 year after the fall of the Golden Throne, Admiral Hyunwoo returned to Earth's orbit. The burned planet still hung in space like a black memorial, but now it served a different purpose. Around it, humans had built something that had never existed before in the galaxy. Director Hyojin oversaw the construction of the Great Memorial. The structure existed in multiple dimensions at once, containing the preserved memories of every human who had ever lived on Earth. Visitors could walk through holographic recreations of cities that had burned 10,000 years ago. They could experience the lives of people who had died when the Valkyrie ships came. 12 million beings visited last month, Hyojin reported as she and Hyunwoo walked through a recreation of ancient soul. Creatures from across the galaxy come to understand what we lost and why we fought. Children who had been born as slaves played in parks that showed what Earth had looked like when it was alive. Former Valkyrie soldiers knelt before monuments to human families, finally understanding the magnitude of what their empire had done. The memorial teaches them, Hyunwoo observed. But more importantly, it teaches us we must never forget what hatred and conquest cost. The real work was happening elsewhere in the galaxy. Ambassador Jae-hyun stood before representatives of 300 different species in the new Galactic Council. The meeting hall was built on a neutral world, with no single species holding power over the others. The human proposal is simple, Jae-hyun explained to the gathered delegates. Every world chooses its own government. Every species develops at its own pace. No one has the right to conquer or enslave another. And if we refuse? Asked a delegate from the former Valkyrie colonies. Then you refuse, Jae-hyun replied calmly. We will not force you to join us, but neither will we allow you to force others to join you. This was the new human philosophy. They had the power to rule the galaxy as the Valkyrie had, but they chose instead to guard it. Human fleets patrolled the space lanes, preventing wars and protecting the weak, but they did not govern. Each world was free to make its own choices. Philosopher General Minho explained the reasoning to a gathering of human officers. The Valkyrie failed because they saw other species as resources to exploit. We succeed because we see them as gardens to tend. Some humans struggled with this approach. Captain So Young voiced the concerns many felt. We have the power to prevent all wars, to force peace on the galaxy. Isn't it our duty to use that power? Power without wisdom is what destroyed the Valkyrie, Minho replied. We learned in the void that survival requires adaptation. The galaxy must be free to adapt and grow, even if that means making mistakes. The former slaves of the Valkyrie Empire had many mistakes to make. Some worlds fell into civil wars as different groups fought for control. Others made poor decisions that led to economic collapse or environmental disaster. But they were free to make those mistakes and learn from them. Freedom includes the freedom to fail, Ambassador Jae-hyun reminded the Galactic Council. We will help those who ask for help. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. But we will not make choices for others. Not everyone agreed with human policies. A coalition of former Valkyrie military leaders attempted to restart their empire from a hidden base in the Outer Rim. They believed that with the Emperor dead, they could claim his legacy and rebuild their forces. They learned how wrong they were when Captain So Young's exploration fleet found their base. The rebels had expected to fight the primitive humans they remembered from old records. Instead, they faced beings who could phase through matter and manipulate reality itself. Surrender, So Young broadcasted to the rebel base. You will be treated fairly and given the chance to start new lives. Never, screamed the rebel commander. The strong must rule the weak. It is the natural order. The natural order, So Young replied sadly, is for species to evolve or become extinct. You chose extinction. The rebel base simply vanished, not destroyed, but moved to a dimension where it could harm no one. The rebels found themselves on a world where they could live out their lives but never threaten others. It was justice without cruelty, strength without brutality. This became the human way. Those who chose cooperation found friends and allies. Those who chose conquest found themselves relocated to places where they could only conquer themselves. Years passed. The galaxy began to heal from 10,000 years of Valkyrie rule. Trade networks reopened, but now they served all species equally. Scientific knowledge was shared freely instead of being hoarded by the ruling class. Art and culture bloomed as beings who had lived in fear finally felt safe enough to create. Admiral Hyun-woo, now old even by Voidborn standards, made one final visit to Earth's memorial. He walked through the holographic recreation of his ancestors' world, touching trees that had died before he was born, breathing air that no longer existed. "Do you think we did the right thing?" asked Soo-jin, now the memorial's chief historian. She had spent decades collecting stories from across the galaxy, preserving the experiences of all who had suffered under tyranny. "I think we did the human thing," Hyun-woo replied. "We adapted. We survived. We grew into something our ancestors could be proud of. And the future?" Hyun-woo smiled, looking up at the stars that humanity now guarded. "The future belongs to those who come after us. Our job is to make sure they have the freedom to choose what that future will be." In the depths of space, human exploration fleets continued their eternal mission. They mapped new worlds, made contact with unknown species, and carried the message of freedom to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Each ship bore the same inscription on its hull: "In memory of Earth, in hope of tomorrow." The Velkari Empire was gone. The Golden Throne stood empty. But the galaxy lived, breathed, and grew under the protection of beings who had learned that true strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the wisdom to preserve. Humanity had returned from the void to avenge their burned homeworld, but in the end, they had done something greater than revenge. They had broken the cycle of conquest and oppression that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. The children of the void had become gardeners of infinity, tending a galaxy where every species could grow toward its own destiny among the eternal stars. And in the burned memorial that had once been Earth, the voices of the ancestors whispered their approval through the quantum wind, knowing that their sacrifice had led not to an ending, but to the greatest beginning the galaxy had ever known. Jin-ho had never seen a sun until today. Born in the cold darkness between galaxies, he had grown up under artificial lights on the great generation ships. His bones were thick and heavy, made strong by life in the deep void. His eyes were completely black, able to see heat and radiation that normal humans could not. He stood in the observation deck of the manufacturing station called Dark Forge. Around him, thousands of ships were being built by machines that worked without rest. These were not the simple metal ships that old Earth had made. These vessels were built from materials that did not exist in normal space. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said Commander Yerim, joining him at the window. She was older than Jin-ho, born when the human fleets were still learning how to survive in the void. Her hair was white from exposure to cosmic radiation, but her mind was sharp as a blade. "The ships look like they're alive," Jin-ho said, watching as a new dreadnought took shape. "In a way they are," Yerim replied. "We learned to build with living metal. Ships that can heal themselves. Weapons that grow stronger the more they're used. The void taught us things we never could have learned on a planet." Jin-ho nodded. The void had taught humanity many things. How to harvest energy from dark matter. How to build cities inside dead stars. How to survive on nothing but empty space and determination. Most importantly, it had taught them patience. "Dr. Taemin wants to see you in the laboratory," Yerim said. "The quantum network is ready for the next test." They walked through corridors that bent and twisted in impossible ways. The station existed in several dimensions at once, something human engineers had learned to do after thousands of years of experimentation. Normal space was too small for their plans. Dr. Taemin was waiting in the quantum laboratory. His head was covered with metal implants that connected his brain to the ship's computer systems. Around him, holographic displays showed information flowing faster than normal eyes could follow. "Jin-ho," Taemin said without looking up. "Connect to the network. We need to test the new range limits." Jin-ho placed his hand on the quantum interface. Immediately his mind expanded. He could feel the thoughts of every human in the fleet. Millions of minds connected as one, sharing knowledge and plans across impossible distances. Through the network, he could see Admiral Hyun-woo standing on the bridge of eternal flame near Earth. He could feel the sadness of Soo-jin as she studied the old records. He could sense the excitement of Captain Dong-hyun as he explored the ruins of Seoul. "The connection is perfect," Jin-ho reported. "I can reach all the way to the outer fleets." "Good," Taemin said. "The Velkari have nothing like this. They use radio waves and quantum communicators. Slow and limited, our network connects every human mind instantly. In battle, we will think and move as one being. This was humanity's greatest advantage. The Velkari ruled through fear and rigid command structures. Orders traveled slowly down through layers of officers and soldiers. But humans had learned to share consciousness while keeping their individual selves. They were one mind with millions of bodies. Show him the tactical display, Yerim suggested. Taemin touched his controls. The room filled with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked Velkari worlds and fleets. Blue dots showed human forces moving into position. There were so many blue dots that they looked like a spreading infection. We have been infiltrating the galaxy for 500 years, Taemin explained. Small ships, single agents, observers hidden among the slave populations. We know everything about our enemies, their strengths, their weaknesses, their fears. Jinho studied the map. There are so many Velkari worlds, billions of them. Numbers mean nothing, said a new voice. Mi-sun entered the laboratory, her uniform marked with the symbols of a master tactician. Her eyes were the silver color that came from direct neural interface with quantum computers. The Velkari learned to conquer through overwhelming force, Mi-sun continued. They destroy everything that resists them, but they never learn to adapt. For 10,000 years, their tactics have remained the same. Their technology has barely improved. They grew lazy and arrogant. While we have been changing, Jinho said, understanding. Every generation of humans born in the void is different from the last. Mi-sun nodded. Stronger, faster, more connected to each other and to the quantum network. The Velkari still think we are the same primitive species they drove from Earth. She touched the tactical display. The blue dots began to move, flowing through the galaxy like water through cracks in stone. They will learn the truth soon enough. Jinho watched the simulation. Human fleets emerged from dark space at dozens of points around the galaxy. They moved with perfect coordination, striking at key targets while avoiding Velkari strongholds. It was like watching a master artist create a painting with light and motion. The first target? Jinho asked. HFY, Mi-sun replied. A fortress world that has never fallen. The Velkari consider it their greatest military achievement. And we will erase it from existence, Yerim added matter-of-factly. Through the quantum network, Jinho felt the emotions of the human fleet. There was no hatred, no anger, just cold determination and careful planning. The void had taught humanity to think in terms of thousands of years. This war was not about revenge anymore. It was about making sure that no species would ever again face extinction at the hands of tyrants. The Velkari destroyed our birth world, Taemin said quietly, but they also created something they never expected. A species with nothing left to lose and infinite time to prepare. They wanted to break us, Mi-sun agreed. Instead, they forged us into something beyond their understanding. Jinho felt a strange pride in his chest. He had never seen Earth alive, but he was part of something greater. The children of the void were going home to the galaxy. Not as victims, but as liberators. When do we begin? He asked. Yerim smiled. It was a smile that could freeze stars. We already have. Through the quantum network, Jinho sensed movement across the galaxy. Human fleets dropping out of dark space. Stealth ships materializing inside Velkari systems. Weapons that existed in multiple dimensions powering up for the first time in 10,000 years. The Velkari Empire was about to learn what humanity had become in the cold darkness between galaxies. They would discover that driving a species to the edge of extinction was the most dangerous thing they could have done. Because sometimes, when you push something hard enough it doesn't break, it becomes unbreakable. The human fleet materialized at the edge of the Keth system like ghosts becoming solid. Admiral Hunwoo watched from his command chair as thousands of ships dropped out of dark space, their hulls gleaming with energy that bent light around them. All ships report ready, announced his communications officer. Fleet Marshal Seong-ho, status of Eastern Attack Group, Hunwoo requested. The screen showed Seong-ho aboard his flagship. Behind him, Jinho and other void-born humans worked at control stations, their black eyes reflecting the quantum displays. Eastern Group in position. We have 17,000 ships ready to strike. Hunwoo nodded. HFY hung before them like a metal moon. The fortress world was covered in defensive stations and weapon platforms. Velkari warships patrolled in perfect formations around the planet. For 3,000 years, nothing had been able to break through its defenses. Captain Boram, report on stealth insertion, Hyunwoo ordered. Boram's voice came from inside the fortress system itself. Her ships existed between dimensions invisible to normal sensors. We're inside their defensive perimeter. The Velkari have no idea we're here. The plan was simple in concept but impossible for anyone except humans to execute. While the main fleet attracted attention, stealth ships would phase shift through solid matter and strike at the planet's core systems. It required perfect timing across millions of soldiers, all coordinated through the quantum consciousness network. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Wu Jin from the fighter bay, "my squadron is ready for launch." "Launch all fighters," Hyunwoo commanded. From the human fleet came a swarm of small craft that moved unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They didn't fly in straight lines or follow predictable patterns. Instead, they flowed like living things, each pilot connected to every other through the quantum network. On HFY War Commander Thekmal received the first reports of human ships. The massive Velkari studied the tactical display with 4 red eyes, his armored hide scarred from 1,000 battles. "How many ships?" he demanded. "Our sensors count approximately 20,000 vessels," reported his aide. "They appear to be primitive designs. No match for our defensive grid." Thekmal clicked his mandibles in amusement. "Humans. I remember reading about them in the historical records. A weak species we eliminated 10,000 years ago. These must be descendants who survived in some remote system. Shall we activate full planetary defenses?" "No need," Thekmal decided. "Let them come. We'll destroy them all and add their worlds to the Empire." The first exchange of fire lit up space around HFY. Velkari weapons shot beams of superheated plasma toward the human fleet. The beams should have cut through human ships like hot knives through paper. Instead, the human vessels simply weren't there when the weapons reached them. "What?" Thekmal stared at his display in confusion. "Where did they go?" The human ships had shifted slightly out of normal space, existing in the gap between dimensions. The Velkari weapons passed through empty space while the humans rematerialized exactly where they wanted to be. "Impossible," whispered the Velkari commander. But the impossible was just beginning. Human weapons opened fire, and they were nothing like the primitive energy blasters the Velkari expected. These were weapons that could fold space-time, creating small black holes that consumed enemy ships. Weapons that fired streams of dark matter, passing through shields as if they didn't exist. Lieutenant Wu Jin dove his fighter through a formation of Velkari interceptors. His mind was connected to every other pilot in the attack. When he turned left, 50 other fighters turned right, creating a pattern of movement that looked random, but was actually perfectly coordinated. The Velkari pilots tried to target him, but by the time their weapons fired, he was somewhere else. Worse, the human fighters seemed to know what the enemy would do before they did it. Through the quantum network, human tactical computers could process millions of possible future scenarios and choose the best path through all of them. "Sir," called Thekmal's sensor operator, "we're detecting massive quantum disturbances inside the planetary defensive grid. Something is materializing within our shields." Captain Boram's stealth ships became solid inside HFY's atmosphere. They had passed through the planet's crust like swimming through water, emerging inside the fortress's most protected areas. "Target acquired," Boram reported through the quantum network. "Beginning core disruption." The humans didn't just want to defeat HFY, they wanted to erase it. Boram's engineers placed quantum demolition charges directly into the planet's mantle. When these devices activated, they would unravel the atomic bonds holding the world together. "All human ships, withdraw to safe distance," Admiral Hyunwoo ordered. The human fleet pulled back with the same fluid coordination they had shown in attack. The Velkari commanders thought they were retreating and ordered pursuit. Their ships chased the humans away from the planet. That was when Commander Yerim activated the demolition charges. HFY didn't explode like a normal world would. Instead, it simply stopped existing. The quantum charges created a cascade reaction that broke down every atom in the planet. Where the fortress world had been, only empty space remained, not even debris to mark its passing. The pursuing Velkari fleet found themselves flying through nothing. Their planet, their shipyards, their million-soldier garrison had vanished completely. On their communication channels, human voices spoke in perfect Velkari. "This is Admiral Hyunwoo of the human fleet," the voice said. "We have returned to reclaim what was stolen. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." War Commander Thecamol stared at the empty space where his planet had been. This cannot be happening. Humans are primitives, weak creatures that we drove extinct. You drove us from our home, Hyunwoo replied. But you did not make us extinct. You made us angry. The remaining Velkari ships opened fire on the human fleet, but it was hopeless. Every shot missed. Every tactical decision was predicted and countered. The humans fought like a single organism with 20,000 bodies. In less than an hour, the Keth system was empty of Velkari forces. Some ships were destroyed. Others were captured by human boarding parties that materialized inside enemy hulls. A few managed to escape to spread word of what they had witnessed. First target eliminated, Seong-ho reported. No human casualties. Good, Hyunwoo replied. Signal all fleet commanders. Begin Phase 2 of the operation. Across the galaxy, similar attacks were beginning. The Velkari Empire was about to discover that the humans they had tried to exterminate had returned as something far more dangerous than they ever were. The children of the void were coming home, and they brought with them weapons and knowledge gained from 10,000 years of survival in the cold darkness between stars. The war for the galaxy had begun with the impossible destruction of an impregnable fortress. It would only get worse for the Velkari from here. Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the massive ship called Eternal Flame. Through the giant windows, he could see what remained of Earth. The planet that once held billions of humans now looked like a burned stone floating in space. No blue oceans, no green forests, no white clouds, just black rock and gray dust. 10,000 years, whispered Sujin, the fleet historian. She held an old data pad in her shaking hands. 10,000 years since they burned our home. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. He had been born in the dark space between galaxies, just like his parents and their parents before them. None of them had ever seen Earth when it was alive, but they all knew the story. Every human child learned it before they could walk. The Velkari had come from the center of the galaxy. Their ships were bigger than human cities. Their weapons could crack planets in half. They had ruled 1,000 worlds and enslaved 100 different species. When they reached Earth, they gave humans a simple choice: become slaves or die. Humans chose to fight. Show me the records again, Hyunwoo said. Sujin touched her data pad. A hologram appeared in the air above them. It showed Earth as it used to be, blue and green and beautiful. Then the image changed. Velkari ships appeared like dark clouds around the planet. Beams of terrible light shot down from space. Cities turned to glass. Oceans boiled away. Mountains melted like ice in summer. They thought they had won, Sujin said. The Velkari believed all humans were dead. But some had escaped. While Earth burned, human ships had launched into space. Not many. Maybe a few 100,000 people out of billions. The Velkari chased them across the galaxy, destroying most. But some ships made it to the dark space between. Galaxies where even the mighty Velkari would not follow. Captain, Dong-hyun reports from the surface, said a young officer. Hyunwoo turned to the communication screen. Dong-hyun appeared, wearing a thick suit to protect him from the poisoned air of Earth. Behind him, Na-young the engineer was digging through rubble. We found something in the ruins of Seoul, Dong-hyun said. The ancestors left us messages. Na-young held up a metal box. Time capsules. Hidden deep underground, protected from the burning. What do they say? Hyunwoo asked. Dong-hyun opened the box. Inside were data crystals that still glowed with stored information. They knew some of us would escape. They knew we would return someday. Listen to this. An old man's voice filled the bridge. He spoke in Korean, but the translation appeared on screen. My children's children's children. We are dying, but you are not. We leave you our knowledge. We leave you our dreams. We leave you our promise. Come back when you are strong. Make them pay for what they did to our world. Tears ran down Sujin's face. Even Hyunwoo felt his eyes water. The ancestors had faced the end of everything, but they still believed in the future. There are thousands of these boxes, Na-young reported, hidden all over the planet. Technical plans, cultural records, even DNA samples of plants and animals that died in the burning. Collect them all, Hyunwoo ordered. Every single one. The captain walked to the front of the bridge. Through the great windows, he could see more human ships appearing from dark space. Not just a few ships now. Hundreds. Thousands. A fleet so big it stretched from one side of the solar system to the other. 10,000 years in the cold darkness had changed humanity. They were not the same species that had lived on Earth. The long journey through empty space had made them stronger, smarter, harder. Human bones were denser now. Human minds could process information faster than any computer the old Earth had ever built. "Admiral," said his communication officer, "Fleet Marshal Xiang-Ho requests permission to begin the next phase." "Granted," Hyun-Woo replied. On the screen appeared Xiang-Ho, commander of the Eastern Attack Fleet. His eyes were completely black, adapted for seeing in the darkness between stars. Like most void-born humans, his skin was pale as starlight. "The Valkyrie still control the galaxy," Xiang-Ho said. 10,000 worlds bow to their golden throne. Billions of slaves work in their mines and factories. They think they are safe in their empire. "They are wrong," Hyun-Woo said simply. "The scout ships report that Valkyrie technology has barely changed in 10,000 years," Xiang-Ho continued. "They grew lazy and proud. They think nothing can challenge them." Hyun-Woo smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Then we will teach them about change." The human fleets had not come alone to Earth. Hidden in dark matter clouds around the solar system were the greatest weapons humanity had ever built. Ships that could fold space and time, weapons that bent the laws of physics, technology born from 10,000 years of desperate survival and cold planning. "The memorial service will begin soon," Soo-jin said. "Every human in the fleet wants to pay respects to Earth." Hyun-Woo nodded. They had come home first to remember, to honor the dead, to promise the ancestors that their sacrifice would not be forgotten. Earth would remain as it was, a burned monument to what the Valkyrie had done. But now it was time for the next part of the plan. "Send the signal to all fleets," Hyun-Woo commanded. "Operation Homecoming begins now." Across the galaxy, human fleets began to move. They had spent 10,000 years studying their enemies, learning their weaknesses, planning their revenge. The Valkyrie had made humanity's children in the darkness between stars. Soon they would meet those children. "The ancestors are watching," Soo-jin whispered, "looking at the burned Earth. Then they will see justice," Hyun-Woo replied. The great fleet began to move away from Earth. They had seen their birth world. They had collected the messages left for them. They had remembered what they had lost. Now it was time to take back what was stolen and make the galaxy safe for all the species the Valkyrie had enslaved. The war for the galaxy was about to begin, and this time humanity would not lose.